The red sky of Varel Prime burned with fire and smoke as human and Varelian forces clashed across the desert battlefield. Explosions thundered through the air while the ground trembled beneath the weight of war machines. Among the chaos stood Captain Elias Ward, a human warrior known for his bravery and strange kindness. He had fought on many worlds, seen friends fall beside him, and watched countless cities turn to ash. Yet through it all, something inside him refused to become cold. He still believed that life, even alien life, was worth protecting. The battle had gone on for hours. Both sides were exhausted. The humans had pushed forward, forcing the Varelians to retreat into the burning ruins of their once great capital. Elias led a small team through the broken streets, searching for survivors and wounded. The war was brutal, but he followed his orders carefully. No civilian was to be harmed, and any who surrendered would be treated with respect. It was one of the few rules that reminded him of what humanity was fighting for. As he moved through the wreckage of a palace courtyard, he heard a faint sound, a weak cry for help, carried by the wind. At first he thought it was an echo of the battle, but then he heard it again, soft and strained. Against his instincts, Elias followed the voice. He passed fallen soldiers, shattered statues, and burning banners until he found the source. There, beneath a pile of broken marble and twisted metal, lay a wounded Varelian. Her armor was elegant, marked with royal symbols. Her long silver hair was stained with dust and blood, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. Even though Elias had seen many alien species, something about her seemed different, noble, proud, and fragile all at once. He knelt beside her, scanning her wounds. The strange glow of her blood shimmered in the dust. It was a sight both beautiful and heartbreaking. He spoke softly, though he knew she might not understand his language. "Hold on. You're going to be all right." Her eyes opened slowly, revealing a soft blue light within. She tried to speak, but her voice broke into a whisper. The translator in Elias's helmet caught only a few words. He could barely believe them. She was the princess of the Varelian Empire. Her name was Lysera, the daughter of the emperor himself. Saving her could mean disaster. If the Varelians found out that a human had touched their royal blood, they might call it an insult, even a crime. But Elias could not turn away. The battlefield was still alive with danger, and the princess's life hung by a thread. He radioed for help, but the signal was lost in the electromagnetic storm above. The orbiting fleets were still fighting. No one would come. That meant he was alone, and the princess would die if he did nothing. He worked quickly, cutting away the debris and lifting her free. She winced in pain but did not fight him. He carried her to an old bunker nearby, one that had been abandoned during the first phase of the invasion. The heavy door sealed behind them, shutting out the chaos of the outside world. Inside, the silence was heavy. Elias placed her gently on a metal bench and tried to stop the bleeding using his medkit. The tools hissed and flashed, scanning her body, but the system returned a message he didn't want to see. Incompatible biology detected. Human medicine could not save her. Lysera's voice trembled as she tried to speak again. "Why, do you help me?" The translator barely kept up with her slow words. Elias looked at her, unsure how to explain. "Because you're hurt," he said simply. "And because leaving someone to die isn't who we are." Her glowing eyes studied him for a long moment. There was confusion, maybe even disbelief. In all her life, she had been told that humans were savages, destroyers who conquered and consumed. Yet this one had risked his life to pull her from the rubble. Her breathing grew weaker. Elias could see her strength fading. He tried again to patch her wounds, pressing sealant foam against her side, but her blood burned it away. Nothing worked. The life of a princess, and perhaps the chance for peace, was slipping away right in front of him. Outside, thunder rolled as more ships entered orbit. The war would continue, uncaring of what happened here. But inside that bunker, one human made a choice. Elias refused to give up. He stayed beside her, holding her hand gently, trying to keep her awake. "Don't sleep," he told her. "You're going to make it. Just stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open one last time. "Human," she whispered weakly, her voice faint like wind and ashes. "You do not know what you have done." Elias frowned, not understanding. But in that moment he didn't care about titles, bloodlines, or empires. All he saw was a dying life that deserved to live. He reached for her pulse again, but it was fading fast. As he sat there beside her, surrounded by the silence of war's aftermath, he made a silent promise. No matter the cost, He would find a way to save her. He didn't yet know how, but he would not let her die, because deep down he believed that sometimes one act of compassion could change everything, even in a galaxy filled with hatred. The cold air inside the bunker carried the faint smell of smoke and dust. Captain Elias Ward worked quickly, trying every tool he had, but nothing was working. The alien princess's breathing grew shallower, and her skin was losing its faint glow. Her blood shimmered weakly where it touched the floor, silver and bright yet fading fast. Elias had treated many wounded soldiers before, but this was different. Her body didn't respond to human medicine, and her wounds seemed to reject every attempt he made. He pressed a sealing patch against her chest wound again, but the patch hissed and melted away as if burned from the inside. He cursed under his breath, frustration and worry tightening his chest. "Come on, just stay with me," he whispered. The bunker walls were cracked and dimly lit, and every second that passed felt like a countdown. Lysera's eyes flickered open for a moment. She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "It is useless," she said softly. "No medicine from your world can heal me." Her voice carried a mix of pain and calm acceptance, as though she already knew her fate. Elias shook his head. "No, there's always something. Always a way." His hands were trembling now, but he forced himself to stay focused. He checked his communicator again and still jammed. No contact, no backup, no rescue. They were alone in a ruined city on a dying world. He opened his field tablet and scanned her vitals. The display filled with strange readings, double heart rhythms, energy pulses, and blood chemistry that defied human science. He stared at the numbers, trying to make sense of them. Her body temperature was falling, her pulse slowing, and her oxygen level almost gone. She reached weakly toward his arm. "Why?" she whispered. "You are human. We are your enemy. Why do this?" Elias looked at her, meeting her glowing blue eyes. "Because you're not my enemy right now. You're someone who needs help. That's all that matters." Her gaze softened for a moment. Perhaps for the first time in her life, she saw a human not as a monster, but as a person. "You're kind. You destroy worlds. But you save lives too," she murmured. "Strange creatures." Elias gave a faint smile. "You're not wrong about the strange part." He tried to keep her talking, anything to stop her from slipping into unconsciousness. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lysera," she whispered. "Daughter of Emperor Kael'thar." He froze for a second. The Emperor's daughter. If she died here, the Varelian Empire would unleash everything they had left. Billions could die because of it. The fate of 2 species might rest in this one room. Elias felt the weight of that truth settle on his shoulders like stone. He couldn't let her die, not for political reasons, but because he knew what it would mean for peace. Lysera's eyes began to close again. Her breathing turned shallow, almost silent. The scanner beeped rapidly. She was slipping away. "No, no, no," Elias muttered. He tore through his pack, searching for something, anything. He found a spare plasma unit, but it wasn't compatible. He looked again at the readings. Her blood composition was strange, but there were traces of familiar elements: iron, plasma, and oxygen carriers similar to human ones. A thought sparked in his mind. It was reckless. It was dangerous. But maybe, just maybe, it could work. He stared at the transfusion device built into his armor. It was designed for emergency blood sharing between soldiers, humans only. Connecting it to an alien could kill them both. But if he didn't try, she would die anyway. Elias hesitated, staring at her still form. He could almost hear his commander's voice in his head. Never risk your life for an enemy. But Elias had never been one to follow every rule. Deep down, something told him that this moment mattered. That saving her might be more than just an act of mercy, and it might be destiny. He looked at her face again. Even in pain, she looked peaceful, her expression calm, like someone ready to accept the end. Elias clenched his jaw. "Not today," he said quietly. He opened a small port in his wrist guard and activated the emergency link. The tube extended with a soft hiss. He connected it to her arm's pulse point, the glowing blood swirling beneath the skin. The device's alert blinked red. Incompatible species detected. He overrode the warning. As his blood began to flow into her veins, a sharp pain shot up his arm. His vision blurred for a moment, and he gritted his teeth. The machine beeped again, reading unstable vitals on both sides. But slowly her pulse began to rise. Her chest lifted slightly with each breath. Elias watched, hardly daring to hope. the faint glow under her skin brightening.
Ned. Her body trembled once, then stilled.
For a moment he thought he had made a mistake, but then she gasped, air filling her lungs again. His own strength was fading. The world around him swayed, the bunker walls spinning. He leaned back against the cold metal floor, exhausted. Lysera's breathing steadied. Her glow was stronger now. The impossible had happened. A human's blood had given life to a Varelian princess. As Elias drifted toward unconsciousness, he heard her whisper faintly, "You gave me your life." Her hand moved slightly, reaching toward his. The warrior smiled weakly. "Guess I did." The sound of distant thunder echoed across the ruins as the storm raged outside. Inside the bunker, silence ruled. Elias lay motionless on the cold floor, his armor dim, his breathing slow. For a long time, nothing moved except the faint flicker of sparks from broken circuits. Then at last, a soft light began to glow. The light came from Lysera. Her body stirred gently, her chest rising and falling. The silver glow beneath her skin had changed. Now it shimmered faintly with a hint of crimson. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim light. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Her last memory was pain, the weight of rubble, and then darkness. But now she was alive. Weak, but alive. When she turned her head, she saw the human beside her. His face was pale, and his arm was still connected to the transfusion line. The device had stopped blinking, its energy nearly drained. Her gaze followed the tube that linked them, and she realized what he had done. He had shared his blood, his life, to save hers. Lysera's heart pounded with confusion and disbelief. Every story she had heard about humans spoke of their hunger for conquest, their cold logic, and their lack of mercy. Yet this man had broken every rule of survival to give her a chance at life. She touched the connection between them, feeling the faint warmth of his blood mixing with hers. The thought sent a strange emotion through her, something she had never felt before. With trembling hands, she reached for the release on his wrist guard and disconnected the line. Elias didn't move. His breathing was shallow but steady. She leaned closer, studying him. His face showed exhaustion, not fear. Even in sleep, there was calmness there. She sat quietly beside him, unsure of what to do. She was a princess of the Varelian Empire, trained in diplomacy, leadership, and battle strategy. But she had never been in this situation before. The man who saved her was the very being her people called an invader. If the Empire discovered this, they would never accept it. Yet without him, she would have died in the ruins of her home. Lysera tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Her body was still weak, though stronger than before. She looked down at her hands. The faint trace of red in her veins pulsed gently. Somehow his blood was flowing inside her. It should have been impossible. Her people's doctors had long claimed that human and Varelian blood were too different to ever mix. Yet here she was, alive because of him. She turned her gaze back to Elias. He groaned softly and shifted, his eyelids fluttering open. For a second he looked lost, then his eyes met hers. Recognition flickered across his tired face. "You're still here," he whispered, his voice rough. Lysera nodded slowly. "Yes, you gave your blood to me." Her words were quiet, almost uncertain. Elias let out a weak laugh. "Guess I did. Didn't have much of a choice." "You could have left me," she said softly. "You could have walked away." He looked at her, his eyes steady despite the pain. "That's not what humans do." For a while, neither spoke. The storm outside had calmed a little, the sound of thunder fading. Inside the bunker, the air felt heavy with unspoken understanding. They were enemies by birth, yet bound now by something deeper, by life itself. Lysera glanced toward the door. "If my people find out what you have done, they will see it as a violation of our blood. They will not understand." Elias closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. "Doesn't matter. You're alive. That's what counts." Her expression softened. "You risked your life for a stranger, for someone who has fought against your kind." "Maybe," he said quietly, "but if we only save those we like, then we're no better than the war we fight." His words stayed in her mind long after he fell silent again. She realized that humans were not as simple as her people had believed. They could be brutal, yes, but they could also be selfless. The two truths lived side by side, impossible to separate. Elias tried to move, but winced. His strength hadn't returned. She reached out, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. Rest, she said gently. You have given enough. For the first time in her life, a Varelian royal was tending to a human. The thought might have seemed shameful to others, but to Lysera it felt right. This man had crossed the line between enemies. He had given something no one else could. Hope. Hours passed. The storm outside finally began to fade, leaving behind only the whisper of wind through broken walls. In that quiet place, two lives, once meant to destroy each other, found a fragile peace. As the faint glow of dawn broke across the horizon, Lysera looked out through a crack in the bunker's wall. The city lay in ruins, but the light still touched it gently. She turned back to Elias, still resting but breathing stronger now. She whispered softly to herself, "Perhaps our worlds are not so different after all." In that silent promise, the bond between them began to take root, a bond that would soon shake the fate of two civilizations. The first rays of sunlight filtered into the bunker, casting long shadows across the broken walls. Lysera sat beside Elias, watching him breathe steadily. His pale face was no longer strained with pain, though exhaustion weighed heavily on him. Somehow, against every expectation, both of them had survived the night. The human's blood had healed her in a way that Varelian science could not explain. She could feel it, a warmth flowing through her veins that was foreign yet comforting, a reminder that he had given her life. Elias stirred, blinking against the morning light. "Morning," he muttered weakly, his voice hoarse. He tried to sit up, but Lysera reached out quickly to steady him. "You must rest," she said, her tone firm but gentle. "Your body needs time to recover." He shook his head, managing a small smile. "I've rested enough. The important part is that you're alive." Lysera studied him carefully. There was a strength in him, not just physical but moral. A resilience that went beyond battle training. She realized that it was this very quality that had saved her. Humans could be unpredictable, yes, but their courage often surprised even the most disciplined Varelians. "I still don't understand," she said softly. "How did you know? How could you risk your life for me?" Elias looked at her with steady eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because no matter what war tells us, some things are bigger than survival or victory. Sometimes saving a life is more important than winning a battle." Her gaze softened. She wanted to argue, to say that war demanded loyalty, obedience, and strategy, not compassion for the enemy. Yet she could not deny the truth in his words. He had chosen to act from his heart, not from duty or fear. That simple act had changed everything. Slowly, Lysera rose to her feet, still unsteady. Her body had regained strength faster than expected. The crimson glow beneath her skin pulsed faintly, a reminder of the human life now coursing through her veins. She flexed her fingers and felt a power that was new, unfamiliar, yet invigorating. Somehow Elias's blood had not only healed her, but it had strengthened her in ways she could not explain. She turned back to him. "You've given me more than life," she said quietly. "You've given me hope." Elias let out a small laugh, though it was weak. "Hope, huh? I didn't expect that to be part of the deal." The day outside the bunker was calm, though the ruins of the city told the story of the previous night. Smoke still rose from the wreckage and scattered debris littered the streets. Yet there was also a strange beauty in the devastation, a quiet reminder that life could continue even after destruction. Lysera felt a connection to this resilience, as if her own survival mirrored the rebirth of the world outside. She looked down at Elias, who was attempting to rise again. "Sit," she commanded gently. "You've done enough for one lifetime. I will not let you harm yourself trying to save me again." He obeyed, though reluctantly, settling back on the floor. "You're lucky," he said with a faint grin. "Most people I save don't get poetic about it." She allowed herself a small smile. The human had a way of lightening even the darkest moments. It was strange to feel this closeness toward an enemy, yet she could not deny it. Their bond had begun with life and death, and now it was growing into something more profound, a connection that neither politics nor war could erase. Hours passed as they rested in silence. Neither spoke much, but their presence was comforting. Elias's breathing steadied further, and Lysera could see the faint lines of fatigue easing from his face. He had risked everything for her, and she knew she could never repay such a debt fully. Yet she vowed silently that she would honor it with her actions, with the choices she made as a princess and as a person. Finally, Elias broke the quiet. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice still tired. "We can't stay here forever. Someone will come looking for us, and from both sides." Lysera nodded. "Yes, the Varelians will not understand, and your people will see you as a deserter. We are between two worlds now." He looked at her, tired but resolute. "Then we'll deal with it together." Her gaze lingered on him, and she felt a strange warmth of gratitude and admiration. This human had saved her life when all hope seemed lost, and now he was willing to face the consequences of that choice. She realized that the act of giving blood had done more than heal her body. It had created a bond of trust, respect, and perhaps something even deeper. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting golden light across the ruined city. The day was beginning, and with it, new challenges awaited. Yet inside the bunker, two lives had been forever changed. A human warrior and a Varelian princess. Once enemies, now linked by courage, compassion, and the most unexpected of miracles. Lysera reached out and touched his hand gently. "You saved me," she whispered. "And in doing so, you have changed everything." Elias smiled faintly, closing his eyes again. "Maybe that's what humans do," he said softly. "We try to change everything, one life at a time." In that quiet moment, the bond between them grew stronger, a silent promise that no matter what the galaxy held, they would face it together. And for the first time in a long while, hope felt real. The bunker door creaked loudly as a shadow fell across the entrance. Lysera and Elias both tensed. The faint hum of distant engines outside told them that help, or danger, had arrived. Lysera rose cautiously, still weak but steady. Elias stayed close, his hand brushing hers briefly in reassurance. Whoever had come, they could not know the truth of what had happened here. The secret of the blood connection could not be revealed, not yet. Through the doorway stepped a small patrol of Varelian soldiers. Their armor gleamed in the dim light, and their weapons were trained immediately on the pair. "Princess Lysera," one of them said with authority. "You are under our protection. Step away from the human." Lysera lifted her chin, steadying herself. "He saved my life," she said firmly, her voice calm but commanding. "He is under my protection now." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. One stepped forward. "This human is your enemy. The Emperor will not forgive this." She met his gaze without flinching. "I am the heir of the Empire. I decide who protects me." Her eyes flicked toward Elias, who was slowly standing now, still pale but ready. He had no weapon drawn, only the faint remnants of his armor glowing softly. The soldiers hesitated. They had never seen the princess speak with such authority. They knew the laws. No human could touch royalty, and certainly none could give them blood. Yet she was alive, and her will was absolute. Elias stepped forward cautiously. "I didn't ask for protection," he said. "I just did what I had to do." Lysera looked at him, a flicker of concern in her glowing eyes. "And now we face the consequences together." The soldier's leader studied her for a long moment. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Very well. But know this, the Emperor will demand answers." Days passed as Lysera recovered under the careful watch of her guards. Elias stayed nearby, though he remained cautious. Every movement, every word could be interpreted as a threat or a betrayal. Yet Lysera made it clear that she would not abandon the man who had saved her life. He was no longer merely a human soldier. He had become her guardian, and perhaps the key to bridging the gap between two warring worlds. Lysera's body had adapted remarkably. The human blood flowing through her veins had strengthened her, making her faster, more resilient, and strangely alert. She could feel Elias's presence in a way she could not explain, a subtle awareness of his thoughts and emotions, as if their lives were linked in some invisible way. It was both comforting and strange. One afternoon, she stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Smoke still rose from distant fires, but the sky was calm now. Elias joined her, leaning on the railing with a faint smile. "You've changed," he said quietly. Lysera turned to him. "So have you. I can feel it." "The bond between us," he nodded, looking out across the ruins. "I can feel it too. Makes you realize we're not as different as we thought." Their peace was soon interrupted by a message from the Emperor himself. Lysera's father demanded her immediate return to the royal ship for questioning. Elias knew what this meant. The revelation of their connection could be seen as betrayal. The human could be executed, and the princess could face punishment for accepting his blood. Lysera looked at him with determination. "We face them together," she said. "I will not let them harm you for saving my life." Elias felt a strange mix of fear and respect. He had never imagined standing before an alien emperor as a human soldier, much less as the man who had given life to the princess. Yet here he was, and Lysera's words gave him strength. The royal ship awaited, massive and gleaming against the horizon. When they boarded, the emperor's gaze fell on Elias immediately. His presence was an offense to protocol, a violation of centuries of law and tradition. Yet Lysera stood firm, holding her ground beside him. "You dare bring a human into my presence?" The emperor's voice thundered. Lysera met his gaze unwavering. "He saved me, father. Without him I would be dead. He is under my protection." The emperor's eyes narrowed. He could see the bond between them, the way the princess's strength had returned and the human's quiet resilience. It was undeniable. Though his pride resisted it, the proof was clear. This man had given life to his daughter, and she was alive because of him. Elias remained silent, letting Lysera speak for both of them. He could feel her resolve, her respect, and her unshakable belief that they had done the right thing. It was a rare moment, one in which words were less important than actions, and courage spoke louder than tradition. The emperor's face softened slightly, though his voice remained stern. "You risk much, my daughter. And you, human. You have done what no one else could. Know that your actions will not be forgotten, though your place here is uncertain." Lysera nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Elias felt a small relief. The first step toward acceptance had been taken. Together they would face whatever challenges awaited, knowing that the bond between them was stronger than any law, any expectation, or any prejudice. As the royal ship prepared to leave the planet, Elias and Lysera stood side by side, looking out at the horizon. The war was far from over, but something had changed, something that neither human nor Varelian could undo. They had survived. They had proven that compassion could overcome hostility, and together, they had taken the first step toward a new future, one where trust and courage might bridge the divide between two worlds. Days passed aboard the royal ship, and Lysera's strength continued to grow. The human blood that flowed through her veins seemed to bring more than just life. It brought energy, clarity, and a strange connection to Elias. She could sense him even when he was across the room, feel his tension, his thoughts, and his quiet determination. At first she thought it was her imagination, a side effect of her recovery. But the feeling persisted, undeniable and steady, like a thread tying their lives together. Elias noticed it too. At first he dismissed it as coincidence, a heightened awareness born of adrenaline and shared danger. Yet when Lysera flinched from a sudden noise, he felt a sharp tug in his chest, as if her fear had reached him directly. When he stumbled in the corridor, she reacted instantly, catching him before he fell. It was impossible, and yet it was real. The bond frightened both of them at first. It was strange, intimate, and unexplainable. But it also brought comfort. In a galaxy torn by war with enemies on every side, they had each other. The human who had given his blood and the alien princess who had survived against all odds were now linked in a way that no one could understand, and neither wanted to undo. Scientists and medics aboard the ship were eager to study Lysera's condition. They were fascinated, amazed, and cautious. Human and Varelian blood should not mix. It should have caused rejection, illness, or death. Yet here was a princess not only alive but thriving, her body adapting to this impossible connection. Medics debated whether it was an anomaly, a miracle, or the beginning of a new understanding of biology. Lysera, however, refused to be treated like a subject. She would not allow herself to become an experiment. "I am alive because he gave me life," she said firmly, "not because anyone wants to study me. That connection is ours alone." Elias respected her wishes. He remained close but silent, a quiet protector and companion. He had already risked his life once, and he would do so again if necessary. But he also understood that this bond was more than survival. It was trust, respect, and something that could not be measured by tests or reports. The ship's crew watched the unusual duo with curiosity and caution. Some humans whispered among themselves, unsure whether Elias had made a grave mistake. Some Varelians observed in awe, fascinated by the miracle unfolding in their midst. Yet, despite all the questions, the two of them moved as if one, responding to threats, fatigue, and danger in perfect coordination. One afternoon, an alarm blared through the ship. Sensors detected a small strike team approaching. Both species had their suspicions. Enemies would never forgive a princess surviving against the odds, and rumors of a human bond with royalty spread quickly. Lysra and Elias moved to the command center together. "Stay close," he said softly, and she nodded, feeling the invisible connection that allowed them to anticipate each other's moves. The intruders boarded, but they were unprepared for what they faced. Lysra's enhanced strength allowed her to move faster than any human or Varelian attacker. Elias's training complemented her agility perfectly. Together they neutralized the threat without serious injury. The crew watched, astonished, as the impossible duo protected themselves and the ship with flawless coordination. After the attack, Lysra looked at Elias with a quiet smile. "We are stronger together than I ever imagined." Elias chuckled softly. "I guess that blood of mine has more use than I thought." She shook her head, though amusement glimmered in her eyes. "It's more than that. It's a bond, something beyond life, beyond science. You are part of me now, and I am part of you." He nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. It was true. They were linked in a way that could not be undone. Every action, every emotion was shared in some small way across species and space. In the quiet moments that followed, they reflected on how far they had come. Just days ago, they had been strangers on a battlefield, enemies by every measure. Now they were allies, friends, and perhaps something more. The war was still raging in the galaxy, but in that moment aboard the ship, they had found something the fighting could not take: trust. Lysra's recovery continued, and with it, her perspective on the galaxy began to change. She saw humans not only as warriors, but as beings capable of compassion, courage, and selfless acts. Elias saw Varelians not as enemies, but as people shaped by duty and honor. Together they began to imagine a future where their bond could inspire others, where hope might outweigh fear, and life might triumph over hate. And so, day by day, the princess and the human warrior walked together through the corridors of the royal ship, connected by something invisible yet unbreakable. Each step, each gesture, each shared breath reminded them that miracles were possible, even in a galaxy divided by war. For the first time, both of them understood that the blood they shared was more than a survival tool. It was the beginning of a new understanding between two worlds, a bond that could change the future forever. The royal ship floated silently above the surface of Varel Prime, its hull gleaming in the light of a distant sun. Inside, Princess Lysra and Captain Elias Ward stood together on the observation deck, watching the horizon. Below them, the ruins of the city were still smoking, reminders of the war that had almost claimed both their lives. Yet in that moment there was peace. Fragile, tentative, but real. Lysra turned to Elias, her glowing blue eyes reflecting determination. "The war is not over," she said softly. "Our people still fight and the Empire still has enemies. But something has changed." "We have changed," Elias nodded. "I can feel it too. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Their bond had grown stronger each day. The human blood coursing through her veins had not only healed her, but had created a connection that went beyond science or reason. When she felt fear, he felt it. When he experienced doubt, she sensed it. It was as if their hearts and minds were linked, a bridge between two worlds that had long been at odds. News of the miraculous survival of the princess and the bond with a human had already begun to spread. Soldiers from both sides were talking, whispers of the human who saved the princess carried across battlefields. It inspired curiosity, hope, and even admiration. Some saw it as a betrayal, others as a miracle, but no one could deny the truth. A human and a Varelian princess had survived together against all odds, and their bond had changed the balance of power. The Emperor, Lysra's father, had summoned them both to a council of leaders from Earth and the Varelian Empire. Tension filled the room as generals and diplomats from both species stared at Elias, uncertain how to treat the man who had defied convention and saved a royal life. Yet Lysra stood beside him, unwavering. "You have brought a human into our highest council," the Emperor said, his voice stern but not unkind. "Explain yourself, daughter." Lysra took a steady breath. "Father, he saved my life. Without him, I would be dead. His actions were selfless, courageous, and honest. I am alive because of him, and I stand here by my own choice. He is no longer just a human soldier. He is my protector and my ally. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some Varelians could hardly believe what they were hearing. A human's blood had saved the princess, and she was defending him. On the other side, Earth diplomats were wary, but even they could see that the bond between these two was undeniable. Elias spoke carefully. I did not act for glory or for politics. I acted to save a life. That life happened to be the princess, and I would do it again. My world and hers have been enemies for too long, but we have a chance to change that. Together. The room fell silent. His words carried weight, simple, honest, and unshakable. For the first time in decades, humans and Varelians could see hope instead of just conflict. Days of discussion and debate followed, but Lizera and Elias remained united. Their bond inspired a fragile truce. Plans were made to cease attacks on border settlements, to exchange knowledge and aid rather than firepower. Soldiers who had once fought with hatred began to question their orders, seeing that courage and mercy could exist even between enemies. One evening, after the council had concluded, Lizera and Elias walked along the ship's observation deck in silence. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast galaxy full of unknown possibilities. I never imagined it would come to this, Elias said quietly, that a simple act of saving a life could change so much. Lizera glanced at him, her face softening. It is not simple. It is extraordinary. You showed what it means to be human, not just strong, but compassionate. That is why we survived. That is why we can now help others survive as well. Elias smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of her presence. Then I suppose we have a lot of work ahead of us. She nodded. Yes, but we will do it together. Humanity and Varelians, we have a chance to be more than enemies. We have a chance to be allies. The two of them stood side by side, linked not only by the bond of blood but by trust, respect, and courage. The galaxy beyond was vast, full of dangers and challenges, yet neither of them felt fear. They had faced impossible odds, survived, and changed the course of history simply by choosing life over destruction. As the stars glittered above and the ship moved steadily through space, Lizera reached out and placed her hand gently over Elias's. Whatever comes next, she said softly. We face it together. He squeezed her hand in return. Together, he agreed. In that quiet moment, two worlds connected by war, blood, and courage found a fragile, lasting hope. And in that hope, humanity, and the human heart, shone brighter than any star. The galaxy was still vast, still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, two people had shown that life, compassion, and courage could overcome hatred. And that promise, born from a simple act of giving blood, would echo across worlds, inspiring change for generations to come.